Welcome to the Lake District. If you're joining me for the first time, hi, I'm Caroline and I'm out and about on adventures in the northwest of England with my partner Andy. So far, we've indulged in a mix of walks from the super extreme through to the laid back, with plenty in between. Having fallen in love with the Borrowdale Valley, we've tackled a handful of Wainwrights, notably Castle Crag, Crag and Cat Bells, the latter of which began and ended with a gorgeous boat ride across Derwent Water. Venturing out, we've also conquered Blencathra, taking the scrambly route across Sharp Edge, tested on nerves by doing a via ferrata. In a bit of a heatwave, we tackled a circular walk to Helm Crag. Today we'll be headed to Thirlmere to hike Raven Crag. Good morning and welcome to close to Thirlmere Reservoir here in the Northern Lake District. We've come along here today because we're going to be hiking up to Raven Crag, Castle Crag and then on to something called the Benn. It is possible to do this as a circular hike, but because we're needing to drive back to London today after having completed this walk, we're deciding just to do it as a there and back in order to shorten it. I do believe that the crag that you can see behind me is Raven Crag. We've just come out of the woods, but the amount of fungi and mushrooms that we've seen in there, including the really bright red toadstools with the little white spots on top, there's obviously been some critters such as squirrels that have been nibbling away at them. The path, on the other hand, has been incredibly steep, and whilst they have put stones down, I find them to be very small and therefore they quite easily slip underfoot, so I've been dreading having to go back. We have looked at the map and we've realised that I think it's the Forestry Commission who've got a track that jeeps use and it switchbacks back down the hill, so instead of coming down this very steep path, I think we might take the alternative switchbacks instead. The other thing that's been really nice is we're starting to see a few more trees that are turning that autumnal yellow colour. So it is the very beginning of September, but we're definitely starting to see signs of autumn, and I love autumn. On second thoughts, we might not choose to use all of that switchback road because it looks very steep over there and there's a couple of people just coming down it now and one of them's just absolutely stacked it, and by the reaction I think they've probably got a nasty cut or two. High fire risk, no barbecues, no fires. If you set fire, surely that's the highest risk of a fire of them all.
Yeah, I would say so.
Once we passed through a single gate, there was 3 different ways in which the path could go, and I'm assuming it's to the 3 different crags that we're going to attempt today. Once we then turned through the next gate that would take us up to Raven's Crag, the pathway significantly improved. It started off first of all with a staircase that was made out of, I suppose, the earth, and then when the earth has gotten a little bit too soft and not stable enough, they've then created this boardwalk that I'm walking along at the moment. So it does definitely get better, even though the beginning of it was incredibly challenging. We've made it up to Raven's Crag, which is the first of the three that we'll be attempting today. The views are pretty spectacular. We've got Thirlmere Reservoir in the background. I'm guessing it's probably because it's the end of summer, but the water levels are looking very low. It's either that or it's lack of rain this year. Unfortunately, it looks like they're doing some kind of works to the dam wall, so the bridge was shut to cars this morning, but I have seen some pedestrians walking across it. I guess because of the works that they're doing, they've also got quite a few of their cabins and offices and what have you, which is a little bit of a blight on the landscape. If we just kind of not look that way and block that part out, the rest of it really is spectacular. One thing that I've certainly picked up on this particular walk is the demographic. Everyone who has been up here has pretty much been the similar age to ourselves. And I'm not too sure if that's based on how tricky the path is because of how loose the rock is and how steep it is. But we've not seen any families, anyone with younger children. We've not seen any sort of elderly pensioners. But I'm not too sure if that might be because it's Saturday as well. So elderly pensioners might be more likely to wait until midweek when it's a little bit more quiet, and perhaps families, with it being Saturday, it being changeover weekend, they might be heading back ready for school starting on Monday. We've just come the short walk back down the hill to where the double gates were. After having come through the gate from Raven Crag, we're going to take a left, and this one is going to take us around to Castle Crag. We've made it the short way over to Castle Crag, and whilst the footpath isn't quite as well maintained as the one up to Raven, I think it's probably because a lot of people who do come up to Raven don't bother to come across to Castle. The view isn't quite as spectacular, but it does give a completely different viewing aspect because it looks out onto the other valley, which was blocked by trees up at Raven Crag. There is also quite a nice ravine with a running waterfall going down it into a stream, and we've been able to watch on as some of the groups who were up at Raven Crag when we were up there, they left a bit earlier and they've gone off for quite, I think, a big hike, and they're completely out on the other side of the valley now. We're back to where the gates are that allow you to go off up to either Raven Crag or Castle Crag. We've just done a really quick tick check because the path going through to Castle Crag was really quite long and grassy. No ticks, which is good. And we've now taken, having come out of the Castle Crag, we've taken a left, and we're now going down the, as I say, that road that I think is like Forestry Commission that Jeeps use, and it's lovely. It's very, very even, very wide, and both of the other tracks are behind. Now, unfortunately, the Benn, which is the third one, doesn't seem to be on the OS map, but we had seen something online that seemed to hint that you should be able to do all three whilst up here. So we're going to have a wander along, see if we can find out way, but this is why earlier on I was saying we're going to attempt to do the three of them. We might only be able to do two. We'll have a look. We've got a nasty feeling that this used to be the way up to the Benn, but as you can see, it's all been fenced off. We've seen signs stating that this land belongs to United Utilities, and I'm guessing they've had to cordon this off for, I'm hoping, good reason. But I do think that that word attempt really is just an attempt. We've managed to do two out of the three, but I think we're going to keep on going down this beautifully paved track that seems to be a little bit less steep than the one that we came up, and we'll just keep our eyes peeled just in case there is another way up the Benn. I can confirm that if you decide to take the track that vehicles will take, it will take you down quite some way before you then loop around, and as you can probably tell by how out of breath I am, it then forces you straight back up again. So I don't know if I'm now regretting having chosen this way, and we should have just gone straight back down the footpath that we originally came up on. It's the final day of our time in the Lake District, and I'll be honest with you and say that this Kendal mint cake has been in my backpack and has gone on every single hike that we've done so far this week, and I've been putting off eating it. But when I travel, I like to try a lot of the local foods. A few days ago when we started a hike in Grasmere, we went and picked up some Grasmere gingerbread, and I absolutely loved that, but in fairness I'd expected to. Whereas the things that I read about Kendal mint cake has really made it just stay in my backpack, and I've been putting off wanting to try it. There is quite a nice story on the back about how in the 1950s, when everyone was still having to ration in this country after the war, they were approached and asked if they could put together some Kendal mint cakes to go on the expedition up to the top of Everest, and therefore it was the first mint cake to successfully make it to the top of Everest. Those who were in that successful party fed back saying that it was really popular, everyone loved it, and the only negative feedback that they had really was that there wasn't enough of it, and it's supposedly a bit of a favourite snack amongst hikers and walkers and other outdoor enthusiasts here in the Lake District. So we've just gotten to the top of this quite high hill that I was not expecting, so maybe a bit of a sugar kick is what I need. Now, for those of you who don't know what Kendal mint cake is, it's not a cake. Yes, there is mint in it, but from the reading that I've done, it's basically just a slab of sugar. So I've opened up, oh my goodness, I can smell the mint and the sugar. So it looks a little bit like this. Nothing like a cake. It's all completely smashed up because, as I say, it's been in my backpack in every single hike that we've done so far. So a piece like this. Let's try it. It tastes like toothpaste, and it's making my teeth really hard. The actual taste of it isn't too offensive, but it's, oh my goodness, my dentist would probably not be happy with me eating this. Why is it a favourite amongst people who visit the lakes and are active in the lakes? I think that there's far better snacks that will give you energy than this. No sooner have we stopped filming me trying that Kendal mint cake, Andy then chapped in and told me that I was eating it wrong. One of the reasons why he didn't want to try it on camera is because he's already had it before and he knows how it tastes, and he told me that I should be treating it a little bit more like a mint, say for example a polo, because if you had a polo mint you wouldn't just crunch down into it immediately. So weirdly, I can't believe I've done it. I went for another piece and I treated it just like a polo mint. It was a lot better. This time my teeth did not hurt. But the difference was, is unlike a polo, which just gets smaller and smaller, this became quite paste-like. So it was almost like having this sweet but minty paste in my mouth. And I guess it is giving me a bit of energy to help me get back down off of this hillside. Just about at the point where I tried the Kendal mint cake, the Benn was actually just off to the side of us and we could see the peak of it. We really weren't that far down from it. We had a good look around looking for a footpath but couldn't see one, and just went with our best judgment, decided not to be rebels and try and clamber up there, making our own pathway. Having now dropped back down onto the tarmacked road, I'm so pleased that we didn't, because very clearly on the gate that we've just walked through there was a sign stating that there's deer management in place, which is a very nice way of saying we go out and we shoot the deer to make sure that the population doesn't get too big, that the deer start to starve. So we're quite pleased that we didn't go off track, because that was exactly what they were asking for. They said in the interest of public safety. Again, they've got away with words. Public safety and deer management basically means we're shooting deers, you might get shot. But there is also quite helpfully a sign that is saying to the dam, and it's obviously the dam that's created the reservoir. So we're just going to take a slight detour off to go and see that before getting back to the car. There is actually a road that runs across this dam, but there's a sign up saying COVID-19, road closed. So my interpretation of that means that cars were at risk of catching COVID-19 if they drove across it, because I don't understand why else that excuse would be used, but hey ho. We do have Thirlmere Reservoir behind me, and what I learnt a few days ago is that even though it's called the Lake District, there's only one lake, and that is Bass Lake, which is right in the north of Derwent Water, and all of the others are classed as either meres, waters, reservoirs, tarns, but not lakes. And then I went on to discover, and I might be wrong with this because I did get it from the internet, which isn't always the most trustworthy of sources, but I learnt that the Peak District has more lakes than what the Lake District has, but that the Lake District has more peaks than what the Peak District has. If you think that's absolute nonsense, do tell me in the comments below. But I thought it was quite an interesting fact, and also helpful to know that this is not classed as a lake because of the dam that we're standing on. It's actually a reservoir, man-made.